Hey, what's going on? This is Joker Man. This is Joker World, and this is my experience with, or my EXP with. I haven't really decided on how I'm going to pronounce it yet. But essentially, I do little featurette, little whatevers that aren't really game reviews, more impressions or initial thoughts of RPG that I've played recently. I kind of have this thing where I don't want to have a long introduction, so this is probably the longest introduction I'll ever do for one of these things. I just really don't want to be one of those assholes in a headset taking 30 fucking seconds to get through an introduction. Yo, guys, hey, what's up, man? It's me, So today we're talking about Final Fantasy 15. Whenever I scale my enjoyment of an RPG, there's only one question I ask myself in order to gauge it properly. How many hours did I put into it? In the case of Square Enix's 15th main installment of the Final Fantasy series, I put in over 100. Does that mean I think the game is perfect? By no means. As Final Fantasy 15 has plenty of problems to examine and meticulously ridicule, but it does mean I enjoyed it a great deal, enough to spend days worth of hours to play it. It also means the game has plenty to offer well after its 13 or so hour storyline. It also has an immersive world that's charming and begging to be explored. I loved how mystical and yet contemporary everything felt, from mystical creatures simultaneously existing with futuristic technology, all the while set in tarnished landscapes and rundown cities, its citizens in the freshest of outfits, but only royalty can rock supreme, right, Noctis? I bought into the overall charm and aesthetic of the setting, say that 10 times fast, and it hugged me tight, never letting go when I first bought the title. I actually bought it a few days before it officially dropped. It cracked street date here in New York, and me and a few friends went over to J&L, shot the shit, and waited until the store sold at around noon. I got it on a Friday, and proceeded to play it well into the night, all night, every night, until Tuesday, when I finally got around to beating the game. Around the same time people were just getting their copy. Like most people, I agree that the story is a bit weak, and it's mostly because the context and setup of the story is reserved for anime adaptations and movies instead of the actual game itself. There's even a giant exposition dump in the tutorial room at the start of the game. If you read the portraits, it sets up the world, characters, and lore, but you have to find and read this important information instead of it being presented in a cutscene. Much of the party's relationship and history with each other is derived from the anime series and film. Without the camaraderie and personality they displayed during gameplay, the cutscenes saved for the character's development would fall flat because the gang's history with one another is never presented in-game. For example, towards the end of the game, it's realized Prompto's alien-looking Emma Stone face is because he's actually an MT. You know, those artificial beings that you've been fighting throughout the game. It kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's supposed to invoke sympathy, but it doesn't. It just raises a bunch of logistical questions about MTs, how Prompto could be so vastly different from them, and so on. It's not logistically fleshed out, and neither are any of the characters. None of their revolutions really mean anything when they happen because they're not set up in-game. Or they're left vaguely explained, but more on the ending later, you know what I mean? It's a shame, too, because most Final Fantasy fans hold the quality of the story in higher regards than the gameplay at times, but here, the gameplay is much more compelling than the game's story. It's actually its biggest strength. It sort of reminds me of another Japanese title, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, in that way. A franchise held in high regards for its plot first and gameplay second, releasing a game where the case is reversed, a game with amazing gameplay but a questionable plot. The game's endings are questionable too, both for how vague and how much of a logistical problem they cause as an effect. It's a surefire way to divide fans of a community, and Final Fantasy 15 can potentially do that to its core fan base. Gameplay is fast and simplistic. It doesn't feel as freeform as Kingdom Hearts, and it's not as contained as Final Fantasy 13. There's an equal balance of fluidity and strategy being used in tandem that keeps the gameplay feeling fresh and contemporary, as well as stemmed in its traditional RPG roots. It's kind of why I found hunts to be the most fun and enjoyable parts of the game. They were the most action-based. Tackling down beast after beast like Monster Hunter made me wish the storyline revolved around being a bounty hunter. I finished every hunt available to me before I left Listalone during the main game. Riding Chocobo, camping out, listening to old Final Fantasy tunes of yesteryear, and snickering at the gang's dialogue is what kept me churning out man-hours. By the time I finally drove off with Iris and the gang, I put in 20 plus hours. There are a few nitpicks I have with the gameplay though, like friendly fire during spells. I understand it, but there isn't even a skill that can be learned on the grid to disable it. Side note, I really love the grid. It reminds me of the Spirit River from Final Fantasy X, and that's my favorite leveling up sort of attribute system in any RPG ever. Anyway, Your party isn't much of a help when they're on their own, and they're kind of inconsequential to fights. Speaking of inconsequential, Aranea has a tendency to show up well after a battle. I've never practically fought by her side outside of the storyline, and gameplay does start to feel a little repetitive after a while, especially when you realize you can warp attack your way out of most situations. It sort of mars down the difficulty in most battles. Not only that, but the option to use summons, those monsters outside of your party that come and deal significantly heavy damage, it's only available under certain conditions where you or your party is in trouble. The overall difficulty of Final Fantasy 15 is pretty easy, especially when compared to most Final Fantasy titles. Your companions aren't very useful in battle outside of their use of abilities, which you're in control of executing. And when you use some of them, none of the characters take damage, rendering them invincible for the duration of the attack. It's an exploit that can be and will always be abused, which only lessens the difficulty of fights. Even when difficulty is presented, it's always more or less an endurance test rather than a test of skill. Whether it's lengthy Super Boss showdowns like the Armor Tortoise, the giant, this guy right here, or excruciatingly long dungeon crawls like the secret Stylift Grove dungeon quest, the game's most difficult moments never derive out of necessarily having any mastery of the gameplay. Oh man, alright, let me back up for a second. Let me tell you about my experience at Stylift. I strolled in there hapless at like 4 in the goddamn morning, right? I was so ill prepared. I would do a small prayer for every next pickup in the room to be at least a potion. At least a potion. I had no healing items available to me about 20 of the 100 floors in. I didn't even know it was going to be 100 fucking floors. I just went in there. It's like, oh, la-di-da. I clear this shit out. I'm up. I don't have any fucking work tomorrow. Yeah, I did. By the time I got towards the Tomberries, I was holding the controller on my lap like a fight stick trying to stick and move and shit. Even during the most visually epic and key battles of the storyline, like the showdown with the Leviathan or even the final battle itself, never really result in being more than a reskin battle of the final fight from fucking Sonic Adventure and shit. I take it back. It took a bit more skill to defeat the Biohazard than fucking Arton, Even that dreadful Chapter 13 quest got its rocks off by limiting your abilities in the name of difficulty. I don't know about you, but I tapped out at the final secret dungeon at Costalmark. I platinum trophied the game. Everyone in my party is level 99. I don't have anything left to prove. I don't care for another tedious test of my fortitude, and sadly, that's the only form of challenge the game has to offer, especially in the metagame. Alright, that's my EXP with. That's Final Fantasy 15. The next game is going to be Persona 4 Golden, if I can ever figure out how to get footage off a fucking Vita. I don't know how to do that shit. I'm doing this as I go along, people. This is all new to me. Look in the description below for my Dead Rising 4 review. I do reviews at PC Mag as like my freelancing gig. It's sort of a side hustle to my actual job, and this here is like my own personal project. Check it out. Dead Rising 4 got a lot of favorable reviews from like top gaming websites, and it really pissed me off because the game is a hunk of trash. Not a hunk of trash, just read it. Just understand where I'm coming from. Alright, follow me here, subscribe, all that shit you know you're supposed to do to help me out, but you're not going to do anyway. Just fucking do it. Why do I have to bug you? You hear it all the time from other YouTubers. You know to do this. Why do I have to? Come on, guys. I don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy. Just fucking be solid. Thanks.